I had never stared so intensely at anyone before. After all, it was what I would have subconsciously thought, not proudly defined as a perfectly normal day. Yet the more I looked at this guy, the more I hated him. He reminded me of those pain-in-the-neck aunties that live in the country, the ones your parents take you to see when you're a kid, without ever explaining how on earth they can be aunties when they're as old as your grandmother. I can still taste the stale cakes and biscuits you always had to eat to be polite. Suddenly, this guy turns around and our eyes meet. I was instantly sorry to have been caught out looking at him like that and averted my gaze as quickly as I could. But in that fraction of a second that separated me from the safety of detachment, I could not help catching his attempt to smile at me. There was nothing about him that annoyed me particularly. It was just that everything about the circumstances made any approach by him repugnant to me. I immediately heard his steps approaching and prayed that indifference would prove an adequate means of discouraging further contact. But my hopes faded rapidly as the sound of his footsteps grew louder and nearer. When he finally stopped, he was so close to me that it was absolutely impossible for me to pretend I had not seen him. I was forced to raise my eyes. I have detested interfering types all my life. I always feel ill at ease when I come across somebody in the street and don't know whether to say hello or not. If I had to choose between detesting the people who greet you when you don't really know them and the ones who you know but never say hello, I'd go for the first category. That guy simply had to be one of the first group. He started to talk as if driven by inertia, without having the decency to wonder whether his conversation was annoying me or not. From his mouth flowed the sort of arrogance you could hear from people who, when watching the Wheel of Fortune, pronounce the solution in a loud voice that everyone can hear, just to look clever. I could not help but personify in this man the memories of all those afternoons I had spent as an adolescent, crushed between the materialism that society was inculcating in me and the actual poverty of the real world. I concluded there and then that he too was one of the causes of my acquired inability to be normal. There I was in a place that embodied my personal failure to avoid becoming bourgeois, and here before me was a guy forcing my own sad awareness down my throat. History is packed with inexplicable acts. If I had to choose a soundtrack for those perpetrated by my own generation, there would be no more suitable background than a theme from a 1980s Japanese cartoon, or the dreary slogan of some multinational company. The insanity of the mass media I had lived through up to that moment justified any act in a mind even marginally unaverage. Luckily I had maintained enough sincerity to realise that this was just a poor guy I had bumped into by chance on a day just like any other. But it was a perfect moment to tell the world I did not like the way things were going.